this is Jamie Magridge. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'm going to do a 3-card tutorial using Happy Hedgehogs, and I'm bringing in Hello There Sentiment from Nature's Prints. It's going to be a simple stamping card, avid card, and then a spectacularly avid card. So let's get started. This is the first card. It's very simple stamping. And I'm using a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white, a 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 thick, scored and folded at 4 1/4, and then I'm just going to bring in a few rhinestones. Okay, the only ink I'm using today is basic gray. So let's open the ink pad and get started. I'm going to use this stamp here. Tap that in my ink pad. I'm going to stamp that over on the left hand side, a little bit down towards the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to come in with the sentiment. Hello there. I'm going to stamp that in this little opening here next to the curve of the tree. And I'm going to come in with that little butterfly. Stamp that above that. Okay. Let's close this ink pad so I don't mess anything up. Come in with my rhinestones. I'm going to bring in the take your pick tool because that helps me. Actually, I'll put the rhinestones on after I mount it to the card. And I'm just going to use my liquid glue. Mount that to the front of the card. Now this is a 1/4 inch smaller than the front of the card, so there'll be an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. Okay, then to finish it off, we're going to come in with those rhinestones. And on this one, I just used 3 little ones, but let's switch it up a little. Let's use 1 big one, 1 middle one, and 1 little one. And there we go, and that's our first card. It's a simple stamping card, but it's very effective and very pretty. Okay, so that's the first card. Well, the second card, we're going to step it up just a little bit. We're going to add ribbon, dimensionals, and a die cut. So I've already done that die cut, and that's from this die here, and that's from the painted labels dies. Okay, and I'm adding some ribbon, and this ribbon is the gray granite shimmer ribbon. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is stamp our tree on the 4 by 5 1/4 inch. It's 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white. It's the same size as on the first card. I'm going to stamp our tree pretty much the same, except it's going to be up a little bit higher on the card. Perfect. Move that aside. Let's bring in this die cut piece. Stamp that sentiment right in the middle of it. Maybe a little bit to the bottom. Get our butterfly. Stamp that above it. This time I'm stamping it a little bit over the H, more over the H. Okay, we'll turn this over. We'll bring in our dimensionals. Well, actually, let's put the ribbon on first. So I'm going to bring in glue dots for that. That's the easiest way to do it. Or you could use regular tape. And I'm going to put a glue dot on the back of one side. I'm going to make sure it's still flat, and I'm putting it on the same end or the same side on the other end. Oops, that glue dot didn't stick. Let's try that again. Okay. I'm going to turn it over, figure out where I want it. Right across the bottom there. Wrap it around the back. Wrap it around the back. And I'm going to add a glue dot to the back of the bow I tied. And stick that right on top of there. Okay, oops, let's move it up a little bit. Come on, glue dot. There we go. That's better. Fluff up that bow, turn it over. I'm going to put a dimensional on each corner. Take those backs off. Bring this piece in that we stamped, and this is going to go down here on this corner here. I'll bring in my card base. I'll mount that to the front of the card. Alright, then let's bring in those dimensionals. And again, I'm going to do a large one, and a medium, and then a small one up here. There's card number 2 done. It's a little bit more dressed up from the first one. We added that additional die cut layer here. Okay. The third one is this card here. I don't know if you can see the die cutting in it. So I also brought in oh shoot, I've forgotten what the name of it is. Where did it go? Well, I'm going to pause you. I'll be right back. Alright, sorry about that. I found it. It's a stitch greenery die. So we're going to include that, add that. I'm also adding a layer of basic gray, which is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So I have my same layer, the 4 by 5 1/4 white. I'm adding a layer of basic gray. I'm adding the die cut, and I'm adding a 1/4 inch piece of scrap of white, which needs to be at least the 4 by 5, or at least 4 inches long. Okay, let's move all these in here. Alright, so let's move this aside so we have room to stamp. I bring in that 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece. I'm going to bring in my tree stamp. I'm going to stamp that over onto this side of the card, right in the middle. Okay. Now I'm going to take the die. I'm going to emboss this side of the card. and I will be right back. Can't fit my die cutting machine under that table. I'll bring in the stacks. So you'll see I just added that embossing on this side. Okay. Set this aside for a minute and let's do our label. And I did it the same way that I did the second one. Stamp the hello centered, and then the butterfly above it. Okay, we're done with the ink, so let's put that away. Okay, we're going to bring in this piece and our scrap. And again, this is just a 1/4 inch that we cut off of this edge of this card before we stamped it. And I'm going to put some wet glue on the back of it, just a little thin layer. I'm going to cover up the seam here. It just dresses it up just a little tiny bit. I'll turn it over and bring in my snips. Oops. Clip this off. All right. Now, I'm going to mount this onto my gray layer. This is basic gray, and it's 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And there's not going to be much of a layer because it's just 1/8 of an inch smaller. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. Now you can. Okay, let's put the ribbon on like we did before. Put the glue dot on the back. Make sure you're on the same side of it. Put the glue dot on the back of the other end. Wrap it around the bottom of the card. Hardest part is making sure it's straight. And put some dimensionals on the back of this. I'm going to add one more here in the bottom because these are on the ribbons. It tends to poof it a little bit. Okay, and this time this is going to go over this way a little bit. So it's not smack in the center. We want it over just a little bit to the left and a little bit to down. Okay, let's add our bow. If I can pick it up. Let's add that to the card. This time, instead of the card going this way, it's going to go this way. And there's not going to be much of a layer. It's a 1/16 inch smaller than the front of the card. Or 1/8 of an inch total. Let's bring in our dimensionals. And this one I used a medium one. And 2 smalls. And there you go. There's our third card. So we've got the stepped up version, the middle version, and then the simple stamping one. Well, thank you so much for joining me today at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.